Well, welcome back. We continue with our coverage of the ANC's elective conference. Still a long way to go before we get to that all-important moment when it comes to nominations as well as voting of the delegates.
And it's getting quite raucous outside, Aldrin. Delegates, it's good that they've woken up because, it was getting a bit dry there for a moment. But there's quite a lot of singing and activity outside the studio. And I guess this is all in the lead up to the all-important credentials part of the conference. So, as you said, we understand that by 9 o'clock, that's when that process will get underway. And hopefully it will be ready because we are expecting quite a bit of contestation around that. But welcome also to our political analyst for the segment, Zubaida Jaffer from the University of the Free State, and Mr. Levindo. Thanks for your time this evening. Well, first and foremost, of course, speaking to the SACP Solima Paila and looking at what the President had to say about alliance partners, about people and structures within the ANC who may find themselves almost colluding with the opposition, and his reflections on that. The SACP naturally not really happy with those sentiments. Levi?
Well, obviously, you will recall that the SACP has taken a resolution that President Zuma should step down. And in the political report by President Zuma, I actually expected him to touch on the resolution adopted by the Communist Party and also highlighted on the events that led to that. But when you listen to Solima Paila, you will then realize that the position that was adopted by the Communist Party based on the events that were taking place, the Communist Party is not budging on those resolutions. They still maintain that President Zuma should step down. They also talk of a critical issue that affects the alliance, which is consultation that has not happened. And I think if you are in an alliance or in a relationship, consultation becomes very central. And unfortunately, that has not been the case.
Zubaida, are you at all surprised at the remarks from Solima Paila about the President's speech, saying that he wasn't even supposed to be the person who delivers that speech?
Well, not at all, actually, because I was also startled by some of the things that the President said. For example, the way in which he spoke about corruption was as if he had nothing, there's no suggestion that he's involved. And the way he spoke about even the role of the private sector, which I think is very good. We must focus both on corruption in the government and the private sector, because it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
And but he spoke as if it was detached from him and his role.
Because if you speak about the issue of corruption, and I've always made the case with the ANC leadership when I interview them, that it's all about the brand ANC and how the brand ANC is impacted by decisions that are taken by ANC leaders. And if you have a case such as this, such as President Jacob Zuma's corruption case, that started before he became president of the ANC, he's now ended his term as president of the ANC, but that matter remains there.
5 years ago at Mangaung, I had the same feeling when he spoke out strongly against corruption. And I had a sort of a feeling of that I'm dreaming, because how can this person stand up there and talk about corruption when all the focus or many accusations have been made that he himself is involved in corruption.
But in all fairness, I totally agree. It's as if President Zuma is having an out-of-body experience. Yeah. But equally, so is everybody else. Because he's not doing this in a vacuum. I mean, everybody has stood back and they were complicit in one way or another in what ultimately transpired, at least from where I'm standing. Levi?
Indeed. The issues surrounding President Zuma cannot entirely be blamed on President Zuma alone. When the opposition in Parliament were talking about Nkandla and talking about the issues relating to state capture, the ANC MPs, including the MPs of the SACP, protected President Zuma. And these matters had to go to court to prove that indeed something went wrong. And the pronouncements of the court even went further to say the president violated his oath of office. And when you expected the leadership of the party to act, that is where the leadership did not act. And that is why now President Zuma would speak about corruption as if it's something that is happening elsewhere not here in South Africa. And also pretending as if he's not talking to South Africans who are aware of the developments happening in South Africa. And that's another a serious area that we need to look at. But also the position by the SACP ever since they sat down and said, we are not happy with the manner in which things are happening. I'm happy that the SACP is being consistent. That's why they've been punished by removing the Secretary General of the SACP from the cabinet position. And that clearly indicates that there is serious tensions between the ANC and the SACP.
Strangely, I actually thought that the president would go into the matter of what happened in Parliament, where it was unprecedented that you had about 30 ANC MPs who were voting against the president and saying that the president must go. Unfortunately, we've run out of time and we have to leave this one here.
President holds no grudges, Aldrin.
Well, let's go back to studio. It's now time for sports.